Why do most people, even smart, hard-working ones with decent jobs, end up broke or barely getting by in retirement? Charlie Munger, the billionaire genius behind Warren Buffett's fortune, didn't sugarcoat it. He knew exactly why 99% of people stay financially trapped forever. And it's not bad luck, not the economy, and definitely not a lack of money. It's 7 brutal, hidden reasons that almost everyone ignores, and I guarantee you're falling for at least 3 of them right now. Stay until the very end because the number 1 reason is the most insidious of all. It silently destroys more financial futures than anything else. And once you see it, you'll never look at money the same way again. Most people stay broke not because they don't know the math, but because they don't master their behavior. That sentence could be a headline, a sermon, and a warning all at once. The title you clicked on says it plainly. 7 brutal reasons why 99% of people stay broke forever. Charlie Munger. I'm not here to flatter you or feed you tidy get-rich slogans. I'm here to point out the habits that quietly eat a life's worth of potential, and to offer simple pivots that actually make a difference. No hacks, no product placements, just hard truths and small things you can do tonight. Let me be blunt. There are thousands of smart people who can run the numbers, build a spreadsheet, and still end up broke. The reason isn't a lack of information. It's a lack of discipline. It's an addiction to comfort. It's a willingness to borrow tomorrow's freedom to finance today's image. It's envy, ignorance, impatience, and overconfidence. 7 failures of character dressed up as choices. Each one compounds against you. Each one is fixable if you treat it like a habit, not a puzzle. I'll name them and I'll explain them. I'll give you an image that will stick and a tiny surgical action you can take immediately. No vague platitudes, no promises that you'll be wealthy overnight. Only behaviors that, when repeated, tilt the decades in your favor. Briefly, in rapid fire. 1. Lack of discipline. 2. Comfort addiction and instant gratification. 3. Debt and reckless leverage. 4. Envy and comparison. 5. Ignorance and refusal to learn. 6. Impatience. 7. Overconfidence. You'll get each one in order: diagnosis, image, consequence, and a micro-action you can apply tonight. Reason 1. Lack of discipline. Knowledge without muscle is useless. People love clever ideas. They read books, listen to podcasts, nod along to advice about saving, investing, and living below their means. Then they go home and act otherwise. Why? Because knowledge without discipline is like a library in a house with no windows, full of light that never reaches the room where you actually live. Diagnosis. Discipline is not glamorous. It's repetition. It's boring. But it's the only engine of sustained progress. We are wired to prefer short-term comfort over long-term gain.
That wiring is ancient. The environment we live in today exploits it relentlessly. Apps, shopping, food delivery, all of it calibrated to satisfy impulses now. The result is intention without follow-through. A concrete image. Picture someone opening their paycheck and thinking, "I'll save later," then watching their bank account evaporate in small, painless transactions, the recurring streaming subscriptions, a lunch out, a new gadget on impulse. Nothing dramatic happens. No single transaction is a cliff, but month after month, the habit of not prioritizing saving wins. Consequence. This behavior reverses compounding. While compound interest works quietly for the disciplined, compound negligence works faster. Small lapses repeated over years lead to missed opportunities. No emergency cushion, no ability to buy options when they appear, no freedom to make choices based on values rather than necessity. The math is cruel. What you don't save today removes optionality tomorrow. Micro-action. Pay yourself first. The best discipline hack I know is procedural. The moment you receive income, move a fixed portion to a separate account, automated and out of sight. Call it a habit account, not a someday account. Treat savings like a recurring bill you owe to your future self. If automation feels too rigid, start with a 7-day rule. Every dollar earned is split the day it arrives. Do this for 90 days and you'll start to feel the shape of your decisions change. Many hook to next reason, but discipline alone isn't enough if the world hands you easier pleasures. That's where comfort addiction gets you. Reason 2. comfort addiction, and instant gratification. The economy feeds your impulses. We do not live in a scarcity environment the way people did a century ago. We live in a convenience economy. Every convenience is designed to make buying the present easier and feeling the cost later. That's not evil, it's capitalism doing what it does. The problem is when you outsource your self-control to a marketplace that profits from your weakness. Diagnosis. Instant gratification is a behavioral trap. The brain rewards small wins with dopamine. Companies sell those hits cheaply and frequently. Meanwhile, the value of restraint, delay, patience, saying no, doesn't trigger a quick reward. It shows up later, quietly. Modern life has blurred the signal between what feels good now and what actually improves your life. A concrete image. I think of a young person financing a shiny car. It's a status symbol that arrives in full before the cost does. Payments, insurance, depreciation, these things accumulate like little leeches. The car provides satisfaction in the short run and drains resources in the long run. Meanwhile, the crowd applauds the visible symbol and misses the invisible surrender of freedom. Consequence. When comfort dominates, you convert future security into present sparkle.
You live on the margin of the present and remain hostage to the next pleasing purchase. Compound this pattern across a decade, and you have a life with little capital and a lot of things, but no freedom. Microaction. Institute a cooling-off period. For not-essential purchases, practice a 30-day delay. If after 30 days the urge still exists and the purchase fits your priorities, then consider it. You'll be surprised how many impulses evaporate. Pair the delay with a simple journal entry. Why do I want this? What would I sacrifice by buying it? The exercise trains your decision muscles. Mini hook to next reason. And then there's debt, the silent robber that loves a person who values comfort over freedom. Reason 3. Debt and reckless leverage. Borrowing for status costs you freedom. Debt is legal and common, but that doesn't make it harmless. There's good debt, capital that builds income, and bad debt, credit that funds consumable status. The problem is not leverage itself. The problem is using leverage to finance lifestyle. That's borrowing your future to pay for today's image. Diagnosis. Many people rationalize debt. I need this car to get to work, or I must have the new phone for business. Often the justification is thin cover for a desire to match a social silhouette. Lenders make it easy. The math of monthly payments feels smaller than the total cost. Psychology does the rest. A concrete image. There was a pattern I watched after every market cycle. People who had financed consumption at high valuations found themselves with obligations when the music stopped. I knew a man who made a fortune during the tech bubble, bought a string of assets and a lifestyle on margin, then watched the tide pull back. The assets were illiquid or overvalued. The payments remained. He didn't lose to the market. He lost to fixed obligations he couldn't service. Consequence. Debt multiplies risk. It converts temporary setbacks into permanent obstacles. When income falls or markets wobble, debt is an immovable lever that can ruin a plan. Worse, it diminishes optionality, the ability to change your life when an opportunity appears. You are less free to pivot when you are committed to servicing past consumption. Microaction. Kill or neutralize high-interest consumer debt. If you carry credit card balances or consumer loans, adopt a focused repayment plan. Reduce the minimum number of creditors you service until they are gone. If you have a mortgage or a business loan, structure your obligations conservatively. Never assume perfect tailwinds. Start tonight by listing every recurring credit payment and asking a simple question. Which of these payments buys me freedom and which robs it? Many hook to next reason. When you're scrambling to keep up appearances, envy plays a very effective conscription. Reason 4. Envy and comparison culture. You buy others' highlight reels. Comparison is modernity's tax.
We watch curated lives on small, glowing screens and imagine we're behind. The urge to match other people's images of success is a powerful engine of overspending and poor choices. Diagnosis. Social media doesn't create new desires so much as amplify old ones. Humans are social animals. Status signals have always mattered. What's new is the constant stream of polished moments and our tendency to interpret those flashes as the whole story. Envy breeds imitation. Imitation costs money, and money spent on imitation does not compound. A concrete image. Consider the investor who chases whatever worked in the headlines. When a handful of stocks go parabolic, he piles in late, persuaded by the visible winners. Or think of the neighbor who buys a home for the Instagram living room instead of the one that fits their budget. The distinction between appearance and ownership dissolves. Consequence. Comparison makes your compass unreliable. You begin to measure success by other people's edited moments. That choice favors the conspicuous spender and punishes the steady saver. Over time, living to match a moving target impoverishes your options and erodes your sense of purpose. Microaction. Practice gratitude and a subtraction audit. Once a week, list 3 things you already own that genuinely improve your life. Then subtract. Identify one recurring expense that primarily exists to signal status and cancel it. Replace the urge to match with one small ritual that reminds you why you're building wealth: freedom, options, time. Many hook to next reason, and while envy pushes you outward, ignorance and refusal to learn leave you defenseless. Reason 5. Ignorance and refusal to learn. Information is cheap, understanding is scarce. Access to information is the great democratizer. The problem is that information is not wisdom. People confuse consuming content with learning. They skim headlines and meme facts, then make important financial moves based on shallow understanding. Diagnosis. Learning requires patience and deliberate practice. It demands reading beyond headlines, testing ideas in small, controlled ways, and recognizing the difference between noise and signal. But learning is slower than clicking, and it isn't monetized the way sensational content is, so most people choose the drama over the study. A concrete image. I think of the person who reads about a hot market, hears a few stories of quick wins, and decides to deploy significant capital with no framework for risk management. Or the investor who's never learned the basics of compounding fees and the difference between an outcome and a process, yet treats markets like a casino. Consequence. The market and the economy punish ignorance with losses and hidden costs. Mistakes compound when you repeat them. Without a foundational habit of continuous learning, you're perpetually reactive, chasing the last headline instead of building a durable approach.
Microaction. Schedule 30 minutes a day for focused study. Read high-quality material, books, annual letters, trusted long-form essays, rather than snackable takes. Make a ledger of one new lesson each week and how you applied it. The simplest test of learning is whether your behavior changes as a result of what you read. Mini hook to next reason. Knowledge is necessary but not sufficient. The next failure is one of temperament, the inability to wait. Reason 6. Impatience. Dopamine now versus dividends later. Impatience is the architect of bad outcomes. The temptation to trade long-term gains for immediate thrills undermines compounding in the most direct way. You interrupt the process that creates growth. Diagnosis. Humans are built to seek immediate reinforcement. Waiting is painful, but wealth building is mostly a waiting game. It's showing up, resisting the urge to tinker, and letting time do its quiet miracle. The modern world, with instant news and instant markets, rewards immediacy and strikes at the heart of patience. A concrete image. Think of someone obsessively checking daily returns, reacting to every headline, and frequently switching positions in pursuit of higher short-term returns. They pay transaction costs, tax costs, and most importantly, they pay the opportunity cost of interrupted compounding. Consequence. Impatience kills compounding. Every time you sell in a panic or chase a shiny new opportunity, you reset the clock on what could have been. The market doesn't have to be hostile to break you. Your impatience is competent at doing that work. Microaction. Adopt a time-based rule. For every investment decision, attach a minimum holding period and honor it unless the underlying reason for the investment changes materially. For personal goals, pick a horizon long enough to measure progress meaningfully. 6 months for a habit, 5 years for a career pivot. Train yourself to measure progress by durable metrics, not by daily fluctuations. Mini hook to next reason. Finally, there's a danger that masquerades as competence: overconfidence. Reason 7. Overconfidence.
Early wins are a dangerous teacher. Some of the worst money mistakes come after success. The mind notes its triumphs and simplifies them into a narrative of brilliance. That narrative encourages larger bets and shriller conviction. Overconfidence short-circuits humility and invites disaster. Diagnosis. Humans are poor at attributing outcomes. We credit skill when randomness does the heavy lifting, and we misread luck as replicable talent. Early wins, particularly in markets, give a false sense of mastery. The next step is usually to double down on leverage, on concentration, on the assumption that you are smarter than the crowd. A concrete image. I recall watching someone who made a small fortune early in a bubble. Flush with confidence, he shifted from cautious investing to reckless leverage, convinced his method was invincible.
It is a cruel pattern. When things go well, people reduce guardrails. When the tide turns, what looked like edge becomes fatal exposure. Consequence, overconfidence leads to asymmetric risk. You take big bets when you should be preserving capital. The result is either ruin or a well-earned lesson that could have been bought cheaper as humility. Microaction. Create a pre-mortem rule. Before you make a sizable decision, spend 10 minutes imagining the worst realistic outcome and how you'd survive it. Then have your bet. If you still believe in the position after that exercise, proceed with caution, and always maintain a margin of safety, capital you refuse to risk. Pause here. You now have 7 brutal reasons laid out bluntly and the small actions that begin to counter them. Each reason is a lever. Each microaction is the first turn on that lever. None of them are magic, but repeated, they transform decades. Every one of these failures can be traced back to habit more than to circumstance. That is the good news. If your life is not where you want it to be, it is not only the world's fault. You can change the actions that compound into outcomes. Let me be clear, I'm not saying structural problems don't exist. Some people face harsher starting conditions. Economies and institutions shape opportunity. But behavior amplifies or erodes whatever circumstances you start with. 2 people can begin similarly and end in very different places because of small, repeated choices. The market rewards temperament far more reliably than it rewards intelligence. Intelligence is useful, character is decisive. You might be thinking, okay, that's all well and good, but how do I actually turn those microactions into lasting habits? How do I fight an economy designed to weaken my will? That is the real question. Naming the problems and giving a first step is necessary, but not sufficient. It's not enough to know the therapy, you must do the therapy. I've watched people make one of 2 mistakes at this point. They either attempt to change everything at once and fail, or they treat small changes as trivial and never give them time. The right approach is disciplined minimalism. Pick one behavior, make it a non-negotiable for 90 days, then reevaluate. Habit is anti-fragile when focused. You also need tools, procedures that remove decision friction. Automation is a moral technology. If you automate your savings, if you remove options for impulse spending, you're not relying on heroism. You're redesigning your environment so that good behavior is easier than bad behavior. And there's another layer most people miss, social architecture. Your environment includes the people you admire and the places you inhabit. If your social feed is a parade of people who prize appearance over substance, it will nudge you toward poor choices. Curate that feed. Spend more time around people who practice restraint. The crowd's taste is contagious.
Now, I've given you 7 reasons and micro actions. You have the first moves. The next part is harder. You must stitch these actions into a life. The synthesis is what turns a list into a strategy. It's where you decide priorities, select trade-offs, and accept that nearly every important decision is about foregoing something now for something better later. There's one aphorism I keep repeating to people who want to take this seriously. Money will multiply what you already are. If you're reckless, money magnifies recklessness. If you're prudent, money magnifies prudence. That's why character work matters. Money is an amplifier, not a redeemer. I've watched patterns repeat across decades. The names and technologies change. The bubble may be in .com stocks one decade, a speculative mania in a local index another, but the human mistakes are worryingly constant. Tech traders who flip positions for headlines, investors who chase the hottest national index, people who finance lifestyles to match a neighbor's curated feed. These are themes in a play that never retires. So far, we've been diagnostic. We've drawn the map. Up next is the terrain of application, how to prioritize these 7 pivots in a real life that is messy and noisy, how to stack one habit on another without burning out, how to preserve optionality when the world is tempting you to spend it, how to turn discipline from an abstract virtue into a practical routine. If you're still with me, there are 3 signals I want you to watch for in your life that tell you whether you're leaning into change or leaning into excuses. Number 1, do you have an automatic saving mechanism in place? Number 2, do you have a cooling off rule for big purchases? Number 3, are you regularly investing in your ability to learn? If the answers are no, you're still in the danger zone. If yes, you're on the path. I'll leave you with one small experiment to begin tonight. Pick the micro action from the reason that hit you hardest. No need to do all 7 at once. Make it non-negotiable for the next 90 days. Tell one person about it who will hold you accountable. The loneliness of change is the enemy of habit. Enlist a witness. There's more to cover. How to prioritize savings versus debt repayment, how to rebuild when you've already made the mistakes, and how to cultivate the temperament that outlasts market fads. There's also the checklist I promised, the prioritized habit list that sorts what matters most from what merely looks important. Those are the practical pages that make the theory stick. For now, you've seen the 7 brutal reasons and taken the first step by hearing them. Change begins with small acts repeated. The decisions you make today will either open doors or tighten them. If you want to keep going, we'll map out the application with the same bluntness and kindness.
I'll show you how to build a process for your money and a character for your life, so that over time, compounding works in your favor instead of against you. Good, you've heard the map. Now, let's walk the ground. First, how to prioritize these 7 pivots in a life that is messy, full of obligations, and populated by persuasive temptation. The simplest rule I've seen work for real people is this: triage for survival, then invest in optionality, then build habits that amplify over time. In plain terms, if you're drowning in high-interest payments, stop bleeding first. If you're solvent but fragile, build a reserve that buys choice. If you're stable enough, invest in long-term learning and temperament. That order keeps you from treating ornamental fixes like structural problems. Start with the obvious but ignored: stabilize cash flow. If your monthly life is held hostage by payments you cannot delay, nothing else matters. List every outgoing that automatically hits your account each month. For each item, ask 2 questions. Does this payment preserve optionality? Does it increase my ability to act next year? If the answer is no, you have permission to shrink it. Subscriptions, recurring luxury services, and the keeping up payments are often the low-hanging fruit. Cancel ruthlessly, not as punishment, but as resizing your world to fit your goals. Second, create a buffer that changes behavior by changing your options. Emergencies are not moral failures, they are planning signals. A modest separate cash reserve reduces the need to borrow and prevents you from making desperate choices when life shifts. Make this account invisible to day-to-day spending, out of sight, not out of mind. Automate the contribution so that your future self is paid before your current self negotiates pleasures away. Third, be surgical with debt. High-cost consumer debt is an active tax on freedom. Treat it like an enemy combatant. You don't have to be a financial assassin, but you must be intentional. Make a list of each consumer liability, its interest, and the psychological strain it imposes. Then prioritize by pain. Pay down the obligations that sap your ability to think clearly and sleep. If you have a mortgage or business loans that are reasonable and productive, don't be dogmatic. Instead, keep those obligations conservative and avoid adding more leverage for consumption. Now, the discipline of habit formation. This is where the rubber meets the road and where most plans fail. The general counsel, pick one habit and do it for 90 days, works because it leverages focus and the brain's wiring for repetition. But there's a method to picking the habit. Choose the one that will create immediate friction reduction. If you never save, automate savings. If you always buy impulsively, set a 30-day delay and route a chunk of discretionary money to a pause and review account.
If you are chronically reactive with investments, enforce minimum holding periods and a pre-mortem rule before taking large positions. Automation deserves emphasis. Systems beat willpower. If you design your life so that the desirable action is also the path of least resistance, you win most days. Have your paycheck deposit into 2 accounts, one for life and one for future options. Schedule transfers to your learning fund and your buffer. Use simple rules. Transfer on payday, no negotiation. These mechanical moves remove the heroics from good behavior. They make you boring, and that is a feature. Social architecture is the invisible lever few attend to. Wealth behavior is contagious. If your peer group prizes immediate status, you will feel pressure to conform. Curate your inputs. Spend more time with people who value restraint, who talk about projects rather than purchases. Curate your feed. Unfollow accounts that turn the appetite for impression into a recurring tax. Replace them with people who model patient progress. Don't mistake proximity for permission. The louder the showmanship around you, the more you must guard your compass. Let's talk about learning, because ignorance compounds faster than almost any other liability I've seen. A deliberate learning habit has 3 parts: exposure, practice, and integration. Exposure means reading quality sources that stretch your thinking rather than titillate your emotions. Practice means applying one lesson in a small, controlled way, testing an idea where the downside is limited. Integration means recording what you learned and how it changed your behavior. A ledger of lessons, 1 line per week, turns passive consumption into active competence. It's not glamorous, but it beats the quick-fix noise. Temperament is the silent winner. Markets, careers, and life favor those who remain steady. Temperament is trained, not innate. The exercises are simple but uncomfortable. Delay gratification, maintain margin of safety, and practice humility when luck plays a part in your wins. 2 tools I recommend: the pre-mortem and the margin of safety rule. Before you take a meaningful risk, imagine the worst plausible outcome and write how you would cope. If you can survive the imagined disaster without losing the ability to act again, the bet passes the pre-mortem. If you cannot, shrink the bet. Margin of safety is not mathematical trickery. It's the habit of keeping a part of your life unsacrificed to a single outcome. Now, rebuilding. Say you've made mistakes, spent on status, piled on debt, sold in panic. How do you recover? The process looks a lot like triage plus humility plus relentless consistency. First, stop adding new holes. That means immediate changes. Halt discretionary spending, consolidate or negotiate payments where possible, and set a tiny, non-negotiable savings rule. Tiny matters.
If your situation is dire, the goal for the first 8 weeks is to prove to yourself that you can make a small commitment and keep it. That rebuilds confidence. Next, document lessons. Write down what you learned and the obvious behavior that produced the loss. Make a public accountability promise to one person. Then, pick one steady income-enhancing or cost-reducing move and focus on it until it sticks. Don't expect drama. Recovery is long and boring. That's okay. Boring is where endurance is built. The market lets you be wrong for a long time. Your discipline must outlast that tolerance. Resist narratives that make your mistakes into identity. You are not your errors. You are the sum of the choices you make from now on. A word on luck and context. Some people start on a steeper hill. Systems, geography, and structural barriers matter. That doesn't excuse poor choices, and it doesn't mean behavior is irrelevant. It means the strategy must be adapted. If you face tougher constraints, the micro-actions become survival tactics before opportunity accelerates. The person balancing caregiving and precarious work must prioritize buffer, small savings, and learning on the margins. The discipline we celebrate is not the same for everyone, but the trajectory, small, repeated moves, is universal. Practicalities that make these ideas real. Here are specific, non-technical procedures you can implement tonight, tomorrow, and over the next month. Tonight, pick one micro-action from the 7 reasons, one you can make non-negotiable for 90 days. Announce it to one witness. Make the action explicit. I will automate a transfer to a separate savings account on payday. Or, I will wait 30 days before any non-essential purchase over a set price and journal the reason for wanting it. The social element matters. Tell someone who will hold you to account. Tomorrow, list all your recurring payments. Identify 3 you can cancel without immediate crisis. Cancel them. Schedule an automated transfer to your buffer so you never wrestle with that decision again. This week, read one substantial essay on long-term investing or temperament. Apply one concept from that essay to your life. Record what you learned in your ledger. Make the change tangible. This month, set a minimum holding rule for any meaningful speculative position. Enforce a pre-mortem before you increase leverage, and stick to your margin of safety. If you have consumer debt, pick a snowball or avalanche method and stick to it. What matters is consistency, not perfect math. If you make these procedural moves, you will change the environment where decisions are made. That will reduce the number of heroic battles you have to fight and increase the number of days where compounding favors you. Return now to a central axiom I want to hammer home, because I've seen too many people misunderstand its moral. Money multiplies what you already are. That's not a pious platitude.
It's a practical truth with many examples. If you are patient, money will reward patience. If you are reckless, money will amplify recklessness. If you are kind, money can enable more kindness. This is why the character work precedes the portfolio work. Let me illustrate with two short, anonymized cases I've seen over the years. The first is the trader from the bubble era. Early wins convinced him he had a formula. He increased leverage, told himself the new, larger stakes were just scaling a proven edge, and ignored the pre-mortem. When the cycle turned, his obligations and concentrated positions destroyed the gains. He didn't merely lose money, he lost the freedom to recover quickly. The second example is an investor who lived below his means, automated savings, and read consistently. No fireworks, no headline stories. Decades later, he had options: to retire early, to start a charitable project, to move without financial strain. Same randomness of markets, different temperament, different outcome. You want an operating checklist that sorts what matters from what merely feels urgent. Here is the prioritized habit list I promised. 7 items, in order, that you can begin to practice and that will compound character as well as capital. 1. Live below your means. Make choices that buy time and optionality, not applause. Reduce recurring costs and avoid financing lifestyle. 2. Save first. Automate a transfer to a separate account as soon as income arrives. Think of savings as an obligatory payment to your future options. 3. Kill high-interest consumer debt. Identify it, prioritize it, and commit to a repayment plan that restores flexibility. 4. Delay purchases. Institute a cooling-off period for non-essential spending. Use it to separate impulse from intention. 5. Learn continuously. Read deliberately, test ideas in small ways, and keep a ledger of lessons that change behavior. 6. Practice patience and minimum holding periods. Attach time to decisions so compounding has a chance to work. 7. Cultivate humility and a margin of safety. Use pre-mortems, have bets, preserve capital you will not risk. That list is both moral and practical. It is not glamorous, it is not fast. It is, however, cumulative. Each habit feeds the others. Saving first makes it easier to delay purchases. Killing high-interest debt increases your ability to learn because you worry less. Patience rewards learning. Humility protects savings. The web of habits creates a fortress of optionality over time. Now, a short guide to staying the course when the world conspires to distract you. There will be noise. The siren songs of new apps, shiny success stories, the neighbor's new car, the influencer's lifestyle. Noise doesn't care about your next decade. Treat noise like a test. When something shiny appears, ask, does this move me toward the life I want or away from it? If it doesn't clearly do the former, treat it with suspicion.
Then follow the simple ritual. Wait 30 days, journal the motive, and seek a second opinion from someone who shares your long horizon. Also track the small wins. The habit ledger is not just about what you read, it's about what changed. Each week, record one behavior you executed that was difficult and one positive result, no matter how small. This builds a chain of competence. When the inevitable downturn comes, you'll have evidence of your capacity to act rationally. That evidence matters when feelings want to reroute you. Finally, forgiveness, both practical and personal, matters. If you fall back into old patterns, don't escalate the mistake by moralizing it into identity. Diagnose honestly, adjust procedures, and try again. Those who transform their financial lives are not people who never fail. They are people who fail less over time because they learn faster and design systems that make the good choice easier than the bad one. We began by naming 7 brutal reasons why 99% of people stay broke. We've gone beyond naming to the terrain of action: how to triage, how to automate, how to rebuild, and how to maintain temperament. The reward is not a trophy, it is freedom, the ability to choose where you live, whom you work for, and how you spend your time. This is why money matters, not for more stuff, for more choices. A short parting test you can take right now. Go to your most recent paycheck or bank statement. Ask 3 questions. Did you pay your future self first? What was the largest discretionary expense this month, and what did it buy you?
If you were to be forced into a serious life change tomorrow, how long could you maintain your essentials without borrowing? These questions are blunt. They invite discomfort. Use that discomfort as instruction. One last aphorism I'll leave with you, because it's the shortest version of everything we've discussed. The market amplifies temperament. Temperament is trained by small, repeated choices. Begin with one small, non-negotiable action tonight. Make it simple, make it public, make it repeatable. In time, compounding will do its quiet work. If you want a tidy, printable checklist of the 7 habits and a one-page worksheet to begin your 90-day experiment, there is a link in the description. Use it as a tool, not as a talisman. And if you found this helpful, subscribe for more blunt lessons on habit, temperance, and practical investing mindset. I don't offer quick fixes. I offer a map and the habits that allow you to walk it. Change is neither fast nor mystical. It is mechanical. It is boring. It is personal. It is possible. Start small, stay steady, and let time do its work. Money will multiply what you already are, so choose the small acts that make you someone worth multiplying.